everyone. Welcome back to episode number 7 of Splash Considerations. This is Justice De Los Santos.
And Eryn Tolentino.
And after a month-long hiatus, we are finally back. Finally free of finals. Finally free of the responsibilities of school. All we can do now is focus on some good old-fashioned Golden State Warriors basketball.
Yep, just in time for the new year. Sorry we've been gone, but we got a lot to fill you guys in on, so here we go. What's
Yes,
first?
sir. And, what's the day, Aaron? It's December 31st.
Got to celebrate the new year.
That means yesterday we finally got to witness the return of one Stephen Wardell Curry.
The chef himself, he's back.
After an 11-game hiatus, Stephen Curry is finally back in the Golden State Warriors starting five. And how did he play yesterday?
He played better than I've ever seen. And in how many? 29 minutes, I think?
I think it was about 26 minutes. He dropped 38. And it's always nice to have another MVP on your team, to have Durant on your team, to have two All-Stars in Clay and Draymond on your team. But as we all know, Curry is the cog. He's the engine that makes this team go.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie. I feel like this past month of Warriors basketball, watching them, even though we've been winning, it's kind of like it's been a little rough. You know, he's the guy that made me love this sport so much. So seeing him come back with doing the things he does best, making a season-high 10 threes in a game, just makes me a little giddy again. I'm happy that he's back.
Yeah. I believe that in that game alone, he entered it with a three-point percentage of 38%, which is, by Curry standards, we could say that's atrocious by his standards. He just set that bar so high throughout however many years he's been in the league. And with those 10 threes alone, he brought that thing back up to 40%. So it's a hell of a welcome back gift, hell of a way to ring in the new year, give Golden State Warrior fans a little something to be optimistic for heading into 2018. But it has been a while since we've talked Warriors basketball, so that means we do have to talk about the injury bug, which has sort of been plaguing this team. Curry missed the 11 games. Draymond's been a little dinged up. Before Draymond and Curry, Durant got a little dinged up. Livingston had to miss a game or two. Iggy had to miss a game or two. But if we're going to look at silver linings, the quote-unquote good thing about these injuries is that, when are they happening?
They're happening early in the season. They're, not anything major come postseason time, and that's what we're worried about. They just want to make sure that these little dings that they'll get some rest. I mean, no one wants to get injured, of course, but rest will do us well later down the line, especially because it's early.
And we've sort of talked about this ad nauseum, that whole concept of being both healthy and hungry. That was what Clay said at the beginning of the season. And now that we're sort of hitting December, we're about to head into January, we sort of see them finally being able to realize that vision in a way. They're finally becoming fully healthy. They're finally becoming hungry. And it took them a little bit longer than at least Warriors fans would like for them to sort of go on all strides. But when you're a team that's preparing for the long haul, when you're a team that's going to be essentially playing from November to June for the next however many years, you got to be able to accept that there's going to be instances in which there's going to be those high points, there's going to be a low point, and to be able to consistently perform high come June, come April, come May, you're going to have to see a little porous basketball come November and October.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like it's a championship mentality to be able to grind it out without some of your best players and still get those wins. So, it's been, even though the basketball has been kind of grinding on, but it's that grind, that championship grind, that's going to get us to the next level.
Yeah. So there were two games which were a bit of a head scratcher for me. So when Golden State went to Oklahoma City for the first time this season, and Durant was dealing with a couple injuries, and he decided to play through it, Warriors lose that game. Durant has an okay game, and then he's out for a little more time. Wasn't really worth it. And then
was it his ankle he tweaked or something?
I forgot exactly what the injury was. I think it might have been the ankle.
Yeah, but either way, he didn't need to play.
Yeah, and then fast forwarding to just this month, Warriors go to Detroit, That's obviously a big game for Draymond. He's from Saginaw. He went to Michigan State, and he goes to play there. He has a really good game. I believe he had 6 blocks in that game, but then he proceeds to sit out the next couple of games. Again, wasn't really worth it. So
I think he reached out for a steal and just like overextended his shoulder or something like that. Just aggravated something that was previously bothering him.
yeah. So I personally wish that they would have sat out those games. I understand why they played. They're like, for the next however many years, whenever Durant goes to OKC, that's going to be a premier game, especially when Westbrook's there. And all things considered, with the first game against the new big three of Westbrook and Melo and Paul George, that's a game that you want to be there for. And then with Draymond, I believe that was their first game at Detroit's new stadium, so that was also something to be there for.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, it's sort of it's evaluating what's important in the long run. So I believe the silver lining of there is a silver lining with the injuries to Draymond and to Curry, in that it forced them to rest. And Draymond and Curry both going into in the games going into those injuries, they've been playing well. They've been playing at an all-star level, but at the same time, it wasn't the same all-star level that we've become accustomed to. And you can see that right when they come back from these injuries, they're seeing the benefits of that elongated period of rest, that forced rest.
Mm-hmm.
So you never want to be injured. That's never, whether you're just some average Joe or you're Stephen Curry, you never really want to go through injury. You never really want to go through that rehabilitation process. But if as a result of it, you're getting extended rest, you're getting fresh legs, then, hey, it could do you some good.
And I think especially it was really beneficial for Curry because they took their time, like they reevaluated him twice, and I think he was actually ready like to come back before he did last night, but they took the long way, and they said he even had like a mini training camp. He was doing a lot of drills. He was working on his shooting more than he's ever done because he can't really shoot. And just his hunger to get back out there is why he did so well in his return, because he just missed the game. So he's fresh and he's better coming into 2018.
Yeah, for me, it's always been about, especially with this team, just considering who this team is, it's always been about being overly cautious. And for me, I'm always of the belief that whenever you have the opportunity to be overly cautious with injuries, that's the road you should take.
Yeah.
I think I don't remember if I talked about this in an earlier podcast, but I was talking about the Markelle Fultz injury, how he was because of the injury, he was forced to change his shooting form.
And they still threw him into games, into high contact situations that they didn't let him rest, which is what I'm confused about.
Yeah, and I do like any fan, like just any fan of basketball, him being the number 1 overall pick, I was really excited for him to play. And when I saw that he wasn't playing well, and the reason he wasn't playing well was because of this injury, I'm over there scratching my head a little bit. And then when you see how someone like Ben Simmons, who was forced to be out for the entire season, the Sixers did play that really cautious approach. You're sort of seeing the benefits of that now. And now that the Sixers have sort of seen that Fultz can't play when he's less than 100%, they're taking that overly cautious approach now. And I feel like a lot of people have sort of forgotten about him. This is just a side note.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm really glad that now the Sixers are taking that relaxed approach, and the same thing applies here. And this is a big if, I do not hope that another Warrior get injured, but in the event that someone's not feeling 100%, just that approach of ensuring that they're rested, they let that injury become fully healed instead of trying to play through it. Because, again, as we discussed, when you're playing November through June, you don't want to have any lingering problems. You sort of want to just pick it off at the source.
Mm-hmm.
So to just give you guys an idea of what that type of rest can do, we can look at just Draymond, for example. So he comes back against that game against the Lakers, the December 22nd game. And in his last 5 games, not including yesterday when he got ejected after 2 pretty weak technical fouls.
Yeah, only 3 minutes into the second quarter.
Especially by Draymond's standard. In his last 5 games, he's averaging 11 points, 9 rebounds, 9 assists. There have been a couple high turnover games, but other than that, he shot the ball really well. Not so much from three-point land, but he's shot the ball really well. He had that 16 assist game against Charlotte. That did come in a loss, but he's had. Did he have a triple double against?
He did. I think against the Lakers or no?
That was on Christmas Day against Cleveland.
Oh yeah.
Then he would have had a triple double if he scored 2 more points against Charlotte. So you can sort of see the effects of what that elongated period of rest can do. And then we look to someone like Curry, who just last night had easily one of his best games of the season, was looking like the unanimous MVP that we all know him as. So, moral of the story, whenever you have that opportunity to rest, it's always the best way.
Take it.
Take the opportunity to rest, even if you have to be a little overly cautious, even if some of the games are going to be a little more of a grind. The only thing that matters at the end of the day, or rather, the end of the season, is who's holding up that Larry O'Brien trophy. Durant missed how many games last season, but he came back. They took their time with him. They didn't try to rush him too fast. Mm-hmm. He came back, won Finals MVP.
And he dominated those finals, too.
He didn't just come back. He dominated them.
Yeah.
So, and as Kerr said, that in a strange way, this injury to Curry has been a good thing, a quote-unquote good thing, because it's forced the Warriors to learn how to play without Curry. And it's obvious. You never really want to miss an MVP, but there are going to be stretches of time, both in the regular season and the playoffs, when they're going to have to run the offense through Durant or Clay. And so it's a matter of how do you run your sets, how do you initiate the offense when you're not with someone that can space the floor so well. And we've seen countless times again and again the effect of Curry, and we've talked about this a lot, his gravity. But there was a play yesterday where he essentially got triple teamed at the 3-point line. Yeah. And then Zaza Pachulia wide open under the bucket. Mm-hmm. So wide open that not even someone who tricks layups like Zaza could miss.
Yeah, and like speaking of Zaza, he had his best game, and that everyone on the court was playing at a higher level than we've seen in the past month just because Curry was there. His gravity is real, and like Zaza doesn't get a season high just because like that's a result of Curry. I'm sorry, Zaza, but that's Curry's doing.
Yeah. And to go off that idea of playing well because of Curry, I believe that we were talking about this before, that Kerr had that quote. It was Steph makes everything better, that the food tastes better, my kids are in a better mood, my wife looks finer, something like that.
Just that Curry effect makes your life a little bit brighter, no matter what you're doing.
Essentially. But sort of speaking of Durant, because of that 11-game stretch without Curry, we got to see something that we haven't really seen too many times, and that's the return of Oklahoma City Durant. Mm-hmm. And there's a pretty distinct difference between the two. In Oklahoma City, Durant, depending on who you ask, was the number one option on offense when Westbrook wasn't chucking contested 18-footers. No. All right, this is just a side note. All right, you remember that game against it was Iguodala's first season with the Warriors. It was the game when he hit the game winner.
Yeah.
Before he hit that game winner, if you guys go back and watch the tape, Westbrook took a 30-footer with, I think it was like 5 seconds left on the game clock. And he hit it, and like if he hits that shot and Iguodala misses it, it's game over. That's like a quote-unquote good shot. But ever since then, it's been and as we've seen in last year, especially this year too, it's been some very questionable shot decisions.
Very sus.
I feel like such a Warriors homer just throwing shade at Westbrook like that.
Yeah, but I mean, it happens. You chuck it and you buck it.
So Durant has gone from being the bona fide number one option on Oklahoma City to being this sort of weird mix between number one and number two. There are games when he'll have to take over because Curry's having a rough night, but typically the way that the Warriors play is that they run their offense through Curry and they allow Durant and Clay to benefit from the wide open shots that he initiates. Mm-hmm. But because Durant didn't have the benefit of Curry, and the same thing with Clay not having the benefit of Curry because of the injury, we've had to see Durant step up and sort of take a return to his OKC days. And post injury, he was bringing up essentially MVP numbers. I believe that the final numbers were, I have them right here: 28.8 points per game, 8.2 rebounds, 5.5 assists. I believe he had a triple double in that first game against Charlotte, and then to go along with a mind-boggling 2.8 blocks.
Yeah.
All of those numbers are higher than his season averages.
And that's one thing the blocks is what I want to talk about, because I know Draymond and a lot of people are saying this too. Like, what do you think about KD's case for defensive player of the year even? Like, because the way his defense has grown, and he's second in the league in blocks behind only Miles Turner, I think. But I actually think he has a higher total amount of blocks. But like averaging, he's second. But yeah, he's just been crazy on the end of the floor.
And that's sort of the benefit that's another benefit of being on this Golden State team. Not only does he have an increased amount of efficiency because he's playing with Curry, because he no longer has to chuck up 20 shots a game, but because he doesn't have to be that number one option all the time, because he can rely on Curry and Steph and the bench mob, he can expend a little more energy on the defensive end. And we've sort of seen that with Paul George on Oklahoma City this year, because he's no longer that number one option, because the offense doesn't have to run through him all the time. We've seen an increase in his defensive pressure. I believe that at this point he's leading the league in steals. And because of that, it's essentially been the same thing with Durant. And there has to be that some type of benefit of playing alongside another defensive player of the year in Draymond Green, someone who's not gonna hold back, someone that's gonna yell at you to get in position, someone that's gonna tell you missed an assignment and get on you for it and ensure that on the next possession you'll be there.
Yeah, and it's crazy because I think in an interview Durant said he's always wanted to shake the moniker of being like just one of the best scorers. Like, obviously that's a great thing, but he's always wanted to be that guy for his team, the one that can get back and can track back and be the one that's applying the pressure on defense, and he's been doing so really well.
And it's not like the tools were never there, because if you just look at him from a physical standpoint, he's 7 feet tall.
That length and his
Don't let
wingspan.
2K fool you. He's tall. He's not 6'9". We've just proven that. He said himself that he's more 6'11", if anything. You look at the photos, he stands next to a DeMarcus Cousins or a Kevin Love. They're about the same height. So he's always had those physical tools. 7 foot with like approximately a 7 foot wingspan.
Quick feet too.
Yeah, someone that's... I forgot who said this, but there's the difference between a big man and a tall man.
Yeah.
So someone like a Kevin Garnett, someone like a Shaq is a big man, but a Durant is more of a tall man. So a tall man that can move like a guard. And in the past 2 years with Golden State, we've sort of seen him been activated on the defensive end. And even before he joined Golden State, we sort of saw what he could do in the Western Conference Finals when Golden State played OKC, when Golden State would run out that, or not rather, Oklahoma City would run out that 3 big man rotation of Durant, Ibaka, and Adams. You would see how Durant was able to feed off being with 2 very good defenders, and we're seeing that here, but almost to a heightened level because of just how good Draymond is and how high of a basketball IQ that he has.
Yeah, their whole system, like their positioning and their switches, like everything is just a culmination of him being able to be in the right spot, and his length. If like he meets someone at the rim and he's in the right position, he has the right timing, they're not getting that shot off because he's a beast of a rim protector.
And as strange as it may sound, because not everyone's gonna want to join Golden State. Some people want the big contract. Some people want a heightened role. But if you're a free agent, particularly one that's sort of been relegated to the bench, you got to look at the way that Durant has progressed his game and sort of be a little intrigued, because heading into, like, before he joined Golden State, he was averaging about a block per game for a majority of the seasons. And then he joins Golden State and he's averaging a block and a half and then 2 blocks this year. So you have to look at the way that this system allows someone to finally unlock their I wouldn't say true potential, but it allows them to be specialized in a way.
And build on the tools that they've already had and just like ways that will help the team.
Yeah, and to talk about that specialization in a bit, that's sort of one of the reasons that Jordan Bell's been able to flourish so much.
Yeah.
He's not being asked to do too much. As he said himself, what's his role is relegated to running every single time, passing it to the light-skinned dudes and that one skinny dude.
That's all you need to do to have success in the Warriors. Take notes.
Yeah, but just being able to focus on aspects of your game that you were previously unable to focus on as a result of being in the system, a system which figures out what you're good at and maximize that potential. If you're a free agent, especially one that's sort of like a Nick Young in a way, when you're kind of down in the dumps in a way, you're looking at Golden State and you're thinking, geez, if I can revitalize my career here. We sort of seen that with JaVale. We've seen that to an extent with Omri Caspi, because Caspi was kind of tossed around last season after the Boogie trade.
Mm-hmm.
Played one game with New Orleans and was waived. Joined the Timberwolves for a little bit, was waived. Signs a vet min, and then he's not like jacking up too many shots a game, but he's quietly having one of the best seasons of his career from a reserve standpoint.
Yeah, even David West, who's on like the last years of him being able to play basketball, is like one of our best bench players, and he's looks younger than ever.
Yeah, David West he essentially went from being the typical old man David West on the last legs of his career, relegated taking jump shots, to doing tip slams, to yamming on fools. I think there had to be a little something with that, with that TT, the confrontation in Game 5.
Yeah,
Might have given a little juice,
you know.
But I was actually looking at old tweets today, and I think that this is actually going to be his last season.
Oh, really?
I remember David Aldridge tweeted that David West will sign a deal, his last, with the Warriors, and I'm thinking, I think he's still got another season in him. Maybe not at this level, but maybe to stand on the elbow, hit that 18-foot mid-range, uncontested.
Mm-hmm.
But anyhow, so Durant's strong play over this 11-game stretch, it sort of leads me back to a conclusion which is essentially inevitable. This is not going to shock anyone, and it seems like the best way I can say is like duh. But it leads to the inevitable conclusion that no team can beat the Warriors. And we always say that. We always, like, this has been talked about ad nauseum, not just by us, but by a lot of other outlets, is that when you have this compilation of talent, you can't beat them. And now look what happens when you take away two of the team's biggest pieces and you say, just go crazy. Here's a double-digit games that you can't play with your whole squad, and you still manage to go 9-2. And obviously the Warriors are not as good when they're missing Curry and when they're missing Draymond, but if they can still be an elite team without those two, and then they reinsert them back into the starting lineup and they're healthier than ever, how do you beat that team?
It's just unfair, honestly, and it's like a win-win for fans, for the players. Like, maybe it's a lose if you're not a Warriors fan, but I mean, shoot, 9-2 without two of your best players, with your defensive player of the year and your former MVP. That's all you can ask for.
Maybe if you're a fan of basketball.
Yeah.
But you're not. Yeah, I would just say if you're a fan of basketball, this might be fun. This might be something to look back on 15, 20 years from now when they start writing up the 30 for 30. What if I told you? But
I would be talking to our kids about this team, man. It'd be crazy.
But we have seen what happens when you're missing Curry. We saw what happens yesterday when he's on the floor, a lot more energy, the gravity he creates, but when he's off the floor, that gravity is essentially gone. And someone who saw that more than anyone was Clay. So I have a couple numbers here. So pre-injury, Clay was putting up 20 points, 4 rebounds, and 2 assists on, and this is the important part, 50% shooting from the field, 47 from 3. Now, in the 11 games post-injury, he's putting up 21 points, about 4 rebounds, same amount of assists. But because he doesn't have that gravity, he was shooting 44% from the field and 40% from 3. Now, obviously, as every stats teacher will tell you, correlation does not imply causation. His cold streak, or quote-unquote cold streak, could have came at a time where Curry just so happened to be injured. But if you look at Durant as well, Durant was putting up obviously better numbers without Curry because he was getting up more shots, but it came at a hit of his efficiency. I don't have the exact numbers, but I believe that Durant was shooting a lesser field goal percentage, a lesser three-point percentage without Curry on the floor.
Yeah, and just because that's probably because they have to like just shoulder more of the load offensively without Curry. With that gravity, they're still gonna be putting up similar numbers, but yeah, they're like you said, their usage, their efficiency is gonna go down. It's gonna take a hit.
Yeah, but now that we have Curry, Clay, Durant all on the same floor again, there's a way to expect that those numbers are gonna go back up. And we did see that yesterday as well. I believe that Durant shot over 50% from the field. I think Clay was 5 of 11 from the three-point line. So expect that efficiency to sort of, in a way, regress back to the mean in a way. But while he did, again, quote-unquote, struggle during that time when Curry wasn't on the floor, he's quietly been having one of the best seasons of his career. And we see career highs in field goal percentage, in three-point percentage, in total rebounds a game, in true shooting percentage, while having, this came as a bit of a shock to me, the third lowest usage rate of his career. And we've seen Clay essentially, he's always been one to accept his role on the floor. He's not going to be someone to put the ball on the floor, 7 dribbles, crossover, and try to make his own shot. And when you have someone that's so willing to accept that role, that's incredibly beneficial because now you don't have to worry about getting someone involved, like making a concerted effort to get someone involved. They just play into the system. Mm-hmm. And I don't want to call Clay a system player, but the role that he plays it at an elite level.
Yeah. I mean, you're not going to see him doing crossovers, step backs, like maybe not too often, probably not ever, but the way that he gets open in his positioning for getting open for those shots. He has been taking a few more shots off the dribble lately. Like yesterday, he had a little bit of a transition pull-up. You know, it's nice to see that in his arsenal. But yeah, he keeps doing what he's doing. And once everyone's there, it's going to be beneficial.
The day that Clay starts taking more than 5 dribbles and starts fading away,
it's one I don't want to see, actually.
I don't know how I'd feel about that. If he develops like a Bradley Beal level of dribbling, like I'll be cool with that. But I don't know, Clay, like I honestly think that he is, in terms of his shot, it's more structurally sound than Curry, a lot more beautiful. Mm-hmm. And I don't want to just call him a spot-up shooter, but I think he's sort of transcended just by how good he's been. He's transcended that being a shooter. Mm-hmm. And as you did mention, we've seen Clay take a lot more shots off the dribble. And I looked up the figures. So last year when he took 1 dribble and then put up the shot 46% from the field, and 33% on threes. He made 13 of 39. But if you look at shots when he's taken 1 dribble this year, he's shooting 48% from the field and 58% on threes, and he's made 14 of those 24 threes. So as we're saying, he's sort of he's evolving his game in a little bit. He's not just being the typical spot-up shooter that we all know. He's making more of a concerted effort to evolve as a player. And this is something we've seen with Clay and Curry this year as well, is that he's taken a lot more mid-range jumpers and he's been making them at a very high clip. And that's sort of been the result of defenses wanting to overplay the three-point shot. Mm-hmm. Kerr had a quote saying, this is Kerr's words, "Pump fake, put it on the floor, wide open, that's a great shot." And as we've seen in this analytics-driven field, the mid-range jumper is sort of a dying shot in a way because it's not the most efficient shot that you can take. Even if you make it, it's a lot better to get it down in the paint or spot up in 3. We see the Houston Rockets embody that almost to an exaggerated extent. But if you're getting a clean look at the bucket as a result of just how much attention you draw toward your three-point shot, a good shot is a good shot.
Yeah. Like, you'll see Clay, like, in the game yesterday, he catches it a little bit past the free throw line, then the defender isn't really, because he's tall, he's 6'7", so if he gets, like, an inch of space with his quick release, that mid-range shot is, like, a layup for them every time.
And then there's also been the typical shots that he takes off that one dribble where he curls off the screen, one dribble, and then spots up at the free throw line. And for even in this analytics-driven field where the mid-range shot is essentially something to be avoided as much as possible and to where you want to go for the three, it's still a beautiful shot to hit. I'm pretty sure it'll make any basketball purist sort of just smile a little bit in a way.
And if you're hitting those shots and you're getting to a rhythm constantly, that's just only going to boost their scoring.
Yeah, and say that you might hit a couple mid-range shots and then might just have a heat check from three, and then boom, before you know it, you're feeling yourself.
Yeah.
You're knocking a couple mid-range shots down, knock a couple threes down, and then boom, game's over.
And the mid-range has to be respected, because if they keep giving that to you and then they bite on it, then you can get to the rack. Then you can find other people that are going to get, the defense is going to get confused.
And that's sort of what we've seen a little bit with Curry this year. He hasn't been, as we mentioned before, he's now shooting 40% on the season from beyond the arc. But before that, he was struggling a little bit, 38% from three-point land. But he was shooting one of the highest clips of his career from mid-range. And as a result of that, just because he was shooting that mid-range shot so well, he compiled one of the best true shooting percentages of his career. So while he may not have been shooting that three-point shot well, he was finding another way to get points on the board, and then obviously him being able to finish at the rim at an elite level for a guard.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then obviously with someone like a David West who's with the 18-foot jumpers automatic, Livingston. A turnaround jumper that's got to go in a museum somewhere.
Yeah, it's money, instant money.
Yeah,
Livingston turns his back on you, just here going, pretty much.
So to sort of transition a little bit, we talked about how Jordan Bell his talents have been maximized in a way because he's been playing with Golden State, and everybody's seen his potential early on, but he's never really been fully unleashed onto the Warriors yet. He's been coming off the bench, and he's been playing his role well off the bench. He plays hard. He provides a much-needed spark, especially on a team where the Warriors aren't going to give 100% every night. Jordan Bell's there to give 110% every night. Mm-hmm. And since that Detroit game, that was the string of games where Draymond sat out after. He's been averaging 8, 6, and 3, along with about a block and a steal per game while shooting 60%. And to think that the Warriors, it still boggles my mind that the Warriors got this guy for $3.5 million, an amount of money that you can't even get a quality bench player for, especially in this day and age of contracts.
Yeah, this market.
So I pose the question. It's been about 30 so games of seeing Jordan Bell play. The potential is there. Do you think that Jordan Bell should start?
I think that's a hard question because, I'm not the biggest Zaza stan, but Zaza does bring some things. But no, I think Anthony Slater said it best. He said, while maybe not yet, right now he is the best player at that position for the team. So I wouldn't be opposed to him starting, but I also think that it should take a little bit longer for him to start. I don't know, maybe later in the season, but because he did start a few times with Draymond out, and his performances in those games were solid, all you could ask for. But like you said, I'm ready for it. It's just a matter of when.
It's a little bit of a mixed bag for me because, as you said, I'm not the biggest Zaza fan, but he had sort of to the tune of the other Warriors veterans. He has a role, he sticks to it, and aside from the missed layups from 5 feet, he plays really well. He can rebound the ball well.
He's a really good passer, actually.
Yesterday, that pass underneath his legs to Curry, he's actually done that a good amount of times.
Seems to be a thing they run behind closed doors. So
yeah, so I'm very 50-50 on it, but I do think that in terms of ceiling, that a starting lineup of Curry, Clay, Durant, Draymond, and Bell, is much higher than that of Curry, Clay, Draymond, Durant, and Zaza. And that's just because Bell and Zaza are two completely different points in their careers. Zaza's been in the league since 2003. Jordan Bell's just coming in, so Bell has that energy. He's young, he's hungry. As throwing it back to the Dallas game, that toss off the backboard plus the foul. So
arrogant.
Yeah, and then I was actually researching for an article about Cal basketball. If you are a Cal basketball fan, please take a look at the Daily Californian. That's gonna be my little plug for the day. But I was researching a little bit, and I was looking at a defensive box plus minus over the past couple of years. And if you look at it, Jordan Bell is just at the top of almost every season. It's like Jordan Bell, Jordan Bell, Jordan Bell, go a couple down, Jordan Bell. So it's weird to say, but I think the makings of him, especially for him to be an all-star, are sort of there. And if we look at the difference between Draymond's first year and Bell's first year, Bell is by far at a more advanced stage than Draymond was in his first season. If we look at, I have the numbers for Draymond's first season right here. He was playing about 13 minutes, a little under 3 points, 3 rebounds, and a defensive box plus minus of 1.7. If we look at Bell, his defensive box plus minus is a mind-boggling 4.5.
Insane.
And for those that don't understand defensive box plus minus, it's essentially the amount of points you generate per 100 possessions based on your defense. The higher the number is positive, the better you are. So there's a clear difference between Draymond's first year and Bell's first year. And if we also look at just the various 3-man lineups that they've ran, I looked at what Bell, Durant, and Draymond, just three. I really hesitate to call Bell an elite defender so early in his career, but just based on what I've seen, it's the makings of an elite defender are there. Yeah. Someone that's very quick, someone that can get to the ball, someone that can make blocks, someone that can steal, someone that can run the floor.
Mm-hmm. Especially when he's being molded by like this Warriors defense, this system, when he gets to play with these elite defenders in Draymond and KD, and he gets to reap all the benefits of being on this team. He was going to be an elite defender one day. That's that question of when, because he's, like you said, he has all the tools.
And to go back to that point of the system, a lot of his, I want to say a good amount of his success is a function of just both his ability and the situation that he's been brought into. He's not going to be asked to do a lot, especially on offense, when you have essentially an all-star at the floor at a time. So he can sort of hunker down and be that presence on defense. And as we've said, like, he knows his role, run every time, passes the light-skinned dudes and the skinny dudes.
And building off that, I've noticed he has kind of a connection with Durant. I don't know if they planned this out, but like a lot of Bell's buckets, especially I think in that 20-point game where he had his season high, or career high, technically it's his first season, but it was just Durant finding him under the rim, like, because he was drawing them all off, and Durant's looking for him, you could tell, and he just has like an easy layup or dunk underneath after slashing under the basket.
And to go into the situation that Bell's found him in, what better way to enter your first NBA season than to have a defensive player of the year? And wait, did Andre ever win a defensive player of the year?
Not quite sure.
I don't think so. But having 3 of the best defenders in the NBA in Durant, Andre, and Draymond at your side, in addition to...
And Klay Thompson, too.
In addition to Klay, in addition to Ron Adams, too, as your coach. That's, for any just young rookie, that's probably the best case scenario. And the only real equivalent that I can think of in terms of the best case scenario that someone could have found themselves in is the 2 Jays out in Boston, Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown.
Yeah.
Because there is a lot of discussion about whether a player's success depends on the situation they find themselves in, and I do believe it's a balance, but we've seen what could happen when you have the right player in the right situation and when you have the right player in the wrong situation.
Mm-hmm.
And this sort of leads me into the bigger discussion of I want to talk a little bit about his contract just because we've had this conversation a little bit earlier in the year about when it gets to that inevitable discussion about how you're going to maintain Clay and Draymond and Curry and KD. So he's only making $800,000 this season, which is, I think that's the minimum that you can make for a second round rookie. He's going to make 1.3 next season. If they don't extend him after next season, they can extend the qualifying offer, which is 1.8, and then presumably he's going to get paid in the same way that McCaw's going to get paid this offseason, in the same way that Cassidy's probably going to get paid. So what we have is somewhat like Bell in a way could potentially be this is very high praise, but essentially the potential is there for him to be like a Draymond 2.0, because there's always that comparison. It's like, oh, this person's going to be the next Draymond, this person's going to be the next Draymond, but it's weird because he almost has his successor right there in every way. Mm-hmm. He plays defense at an elite level, he hustles, but in that he's a lot more athletic. And then there's also the fact that Bell can pass the ball as well. Mm-hmm. I believe that as I mentioned, that when Draymond sat out, he was averaging about 4 assists per game. So he can pass the ball really well too. So you have the protege and what's the term?
The sensei, mentor.
The mentor.
We can say sensei too.
And you have them both playing at an elite level right next to each other. It's not a situation where Draymond's on his last legs, but he can still shed a little light on how to play. No, you have both of them playing at an elite level right now. Mm-hmm. And it's a little crazy to think that if Bell was to be inserted into that starting five, which would be a Curry, Clay, KD, Dre, and Bell, it's a little grandiose because you have to think that the right circumstances hit, but you could potentially be looking at a starting five composed of all-stars. And Bell's, no disrespect to Bell, but he's not going to be an all-star this year. It's hard for any first year to be an all-star straight out of the gate. If anybody had a chance, like LeBron was,
Ben Simmons.
Yes, maybe Ben Simmons. LeBron wasn't even an all-star in his first year, although I personally have the belief that he got robbed for that, but that's a side note. But looking 2 years down the line, if the Warriors are able to retain every big piece that they have, you could potentially, there's the realistic possibility that you could be looking at a starting five composed of 5 all-stars, which is just wild to think about.
Just unheard of.
And then not only like an all-star starting five, but if we just sort of let's imagine that it's a 2019-2020 season. Let's look into the crystal ball a little bit. Imagine that they retain all 4 and then Bell's still there. Bell's had a couple seasons to develop. Maybe even has a 3-point shot at this point.
Oh man, that would be the dream.
But instead of Zaza at the starting five, you got Bell. Bell's had a couple seasons to improve as a defender, get a little stronger. You have a 3-headed defense down low of KD, Dre, and Bell.
That's sick. That's like super death defense lineup.
Super death defense, super death offense. Warriors aren't going to be. I don't see them running the same pace that they do 3 years down the line. But when you have someone like Jordan Bell, who's only going to be 24 at that point, someone that can spark on defense, it's even scarier to think about even with the team that they have right now. And I don't really think there's a chance that he's going to win Rookie of the Year. Ben Simmons, great player. Jason Tatum, great player.
Donovan Mitchell can't be ignored either.
Great player. This side note, this is actually one of the best rookie classes that I've seen so far. Mitchell, Ball, Bell, Simmons, Tatum. Even shout out to Collins in Atlanta. Mm-hmm. Can I get a little bit of a free Collins because Atlanta's not exactly the best situation.
Oh man.
Dennis Smith. I know I'm gonna be missing a couple other rookies. Nitalinka on. Am I pronouncing? Yeah, I think it's Nitalinka on New York. Side note. Another side note. He's got some of the best nicknames that I've heard.
Oh, what? Give me an example.
So he's from France.
Yeah.
So the French Prince.
Oh, that's sick. That's a good
the
one.
franchise.
All right, he wins.
Frankie
nickname
Smokes, among others. Shout out to my man Haruka. He's a New York Knicks fan. And then among all the other rookies, so I do expect him though to get a couple third place votes. I don't see him winning or not winning. I don't see him placing third, but I do see him stealing a couple third place votes.
And that's the pleasant surprise for us who are watching him develop, because we didn't expect this. What did we do to deserve this? Like a rookie playing this well, and like it's just been an unexpected surprise, and he's been blowing all of my expectations out of the water.
It's the swindle god, Bob Myers, and
Jordan Bell is the reason for this podcast name. Don't let that be believed.
Wait, what?
Splash considerations, cast considerations.
Oh, oh yeah, I'm tripping.
This man, he's the platform.
3.5 million. On a side note, I gotta give a shout out to Jordan Bell for being petty when they were playing the Bulls. I think this is a while ago.
Yeah.
But the NBA is, in addition to being one of the most entertaining leagues in the entire world, it also has some of the pettiest players, and it's hilarious.
It's just lovely to watch, and I'm here for it.
I am completely here for it. Did you see the altercation between Westbrook and Valanciunas a couple days ago?
I think I saw, you have clips of it on Instagram and stuff.
Yeah, it's a classic petty. For those who aren't informed, Westbrook is laying on the ground. I don't exactly remember how. He's just, sitting up. He has the ball in his hand. The play is dead. Valanciunas reaches down to grab it. Westbrook sort of... I don't really want to degrade Westbrook like this, but sort of to the tune of a little kid, just sort of... Valanciunas reaches down, he swipes it away, he pulls it back. Valanciunas reaches again. He swipes, and he, pulls it back.
He's like,
and then Westbrook hops up, tries to get in Valanciunas' face, double technical. And that is just premier petty. The NBA, some of the greatest athletes in the world and some of the pettiest, and then all the stuff that happens with Embiid just pissing off every opposing center, which is amazing to me.
The NBA is straight comedy. If half these players weren't NBA players, they could be comedians.
Essentially. And then you have... this is a little bit of a... This might sting a little bit for the Warriors fans, but when LeBron hosted that Halloween party, the Stephen Curry cookies, the Klay Thompson cookies, the
on tombstones.
On tombstones.
He wanted us dead.
And then, all right, this isn't even petty, but just we cannot do this podcast without acknowledging the fact that Kentavious Caldwell-Pope is playing with an ankle bracelet.
Yeah, it's just boy, you should be at home. You're on house arrest.
He hasn't been exactly playing well, and I've seen one too many comments saying that they should the warden should just make him stay in jail instead of suiting up for the next game, or that he should just a picture of what the warden's looking like watching him coming back to the cell after the game.
Wow.
The NBA is
it's pretty harsh.
The NBA is definitely it is a league. But to sort of transition to not so much a sour note, but something that we do got to talk about a little bit are the JaVale McGee trade rumors, and we'll sort of put this under the blanket of trade rumors in general. So to start with JaVale, he's not surprisingly unhappy with the current situation. He's only playing less than 10 minutes a game. He was only offered the vet minimum contract, not even offered a starting spot at the beginning of the season. He's only played 10 plus minutes 8 times this season. And this comes immediately after he revitalized his career last season. He had one of the best seasons in recent memory. He's sort of been an afterthought at that point. He comes back, really athletic, plays his role really well, provides a much-needed spark off the bench for Warriors at times, especially during that Portland series when there was moments of offensive stagnation.
Yeah. Toss
up to JaVale, big slam, get the bench into it, and then boom, go from there.
Yeah. He really reinvented his image after being a constant star on Shaq and the Fool, and just being this guy in the NBA that people knew they would say he wasn't smart or just the way he played, but now and then that year with the Warriors, he did things that no one's seen him do really consistently. He reinvented himself.
And not only has he reinvented himself, but he's essentially given himself second life in terms of being able to etch out a career. I think he's 30 years old at this point. And while he may not be the starter that he once was, or may not have that opportunity to start, you have to assume that at the end of this season, regardless of what team he ends the season on, some team's going to give him a look. Some team is going to give him an opportunity to play heavy minutes off the bench or even start. And according to Marcus Thompson, McGee hasn't really been causing any problems in the locker room. Him and Swaggy P have been collaborating on a potential album, one to the tune that Draymond Green is not a big fan of.
He said, I don't want to hear any of that.
Yeah. Throwing a little bit of jabs, a SoundCloud rapper. But even though the fact that JaVale McGee is essentially being paid $2 million to occasionally come off the bench, occasionally play 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 minutes here or there, that's good. As an NBA player and someone with that, I would assume has an immense amount of pride in their game, in their ability to get to the highest level of basketball. That can be a little, I don't want to say irritating, but that can irk you a little bit.
Yeah.
Especially knowing that you could still have bounce, that you still have your athleticism, that you could still play 15 minutes a game.
Yeah.
And part of the reason that he's been playing so few minutes is that Jordan Bell as we mentioned, he's effectively swiped those minutes away. What Jordan Bell does not have in height, there's about a 3-inch difference between him and JaVale. He has in athleticism, he has in defensive ability, and he's a lot more defensive or versatile on the defensive end. He could switch between 3, 4s, and 5s.
Yeah. And speaking of that, like, just JaVale has this season become more of an obvious like liability on defense. Teams are seeming to target him with their guards. They rush right at him, and he gets blown by really easily. I don't know if it's a problem with his foot speed or positioning, because like he just seems to be in the wrong area. I mean, I know you said that the stats were showing that he's actually having the best defensive season.
Yeah, by defensive box plus minus, this season is actually his best defensive season. But you also have to consider sample size too.
Yeah, and it's just, maybe it's just selective sampling from me, just seeing what I've seen. But yeah, he gets targeted, he gets driven at really aggressively, and he just has to get pulled off. And that's where Bell, being as effective as he is on defense and fast and quick and explosive, that's why he's getting those minutes, I think.
And then in addition to not just Bell, it's the emergence of David West.
Yeah.
Because David West had an amazing season last year off the bench, one that you would ask of any late 30-year-old. But then he's come out of essentially nowhere. He's had the fountain of youth.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, this is, again, very small sample size, but he's had the highest player efficiency rating of his career, highest true shooting. He's still an elite. I wouldn't say elite, but he's still a really good defender. And at mid-range is money.
He's posterizing younger guys.
Yeah.
Like with sick highlight dunks and tip back slams. This dude is reversed the clock 10 years.
And it's not just McGee either who hasn't been playing heavy minutes that's on that roster. It's also Kevon Looney. You know, he had that great stretch, especially with that Washington game, the end one. And this season he has looked a lot better than he has in previous seasons. He's slimmed down a little bit. He's still a really good defender. He can get you boards. But he still hasn't been playing the heavy minutes that I believe he can play. When Draymond went down, a lot of potential minutes went to Bell instead. In that time period when since the Detroit game, I think he's only played less than 10 minutes. I believe less than 8 minutes actually. So you have two quality players who could probably get maybe 15 minutes on another team. And one of the teams that has been rumored to be interested in JaVale is the Milwaukee Bucks. And for me, that makes a little bit of sense. Not a little bit of sense, it does make sense. The Bucks have Thon Maker and John Henson, two really good big men, but in terms of their big man depth, there's not too much there. And potentially a trade with Milwaukee could be a win-win if you bundle up, say, JaVale, Looney, and ship him off for someone that could provide some potential bench depth. And the idea that I've been mulling around for the past couple of days is a trade where the Warriors send McGee and Kevon Looney for Rashad Vaughn. For those that don't know who Rashad Vaughn is, he came from UNLV. This is his third year in the league. It's sort of to the tune of McGee and Looney. He hasn't been playing heavy minutes. He's only played double-digit minute 10 times this season. And the Bucks already are relatively deep in terms of their guard rotation. They traded for Eric Bledsoe, and then in addition you have Middleton, Brogdon, Snell, and Dellavedova. That's a pretty solid 5-guard rotation right there, and then so that sort of leaves Rashad Vaughn as the odd man out. And it could essentially, the way that I view it, if this trade was to go down, it could be a potential win-win for both teams. Milwaukee gets a little bit of big man depth. Golden State gets a shooter, and you might be saying, oh, why does Golden State need another shooter? This is more so for the bench, because while they do shoot the three at an elite level, in terms of made threes off the bench, I believe they're sort of middle of the pack.
Yeah.
And then you have someone like Omri Caspi, who, while he's really good, he's sort of shown a reluctance to shoot the three, even a reluctance that's sort of makes you want to cringe a little bit.
I know, like he's there and the shot's there, and you know that he can shoot it out with the best of them, especially with that shootout he had with Steph Curry a couple years ago. But like he's like you said, reluctant, almost hesitant to shoot, which is weird because I know the Warriors are always saying to get the best shot, and whoever's going to take it, which he could take, but.
And then with someone like McCaw, who, again, sort of to the tune of Caspi, he's not as aggressive, but he takes it even a little further in that there are very few instances in which he's really aggressive. And sort of to the same tune, it's when McCaw is aggressive, that's when he's essentially at his best. He had that really good game a couple nights ago, and I think I even looked it up too. I believe when he has 10 or more field goal attempts, that's what I would consider for McCaw being aggressive. I think he's averaging around 11.8 points, and that's not including postseason. So you have two players that, like, more so McCaw, that can be aggressive but just sort of show a little bit of reluctance too. And the one thing about Vaughn is that if you were to trade for him, there wouldn't be those big minutes right out of the gate, because if you look at the current state of affairs, you have Curry, Clay, KD, Draymond, Zaza starting 5. Then on the bench you have Andre, Livingston, Bell, McCaw, Caspi, Young, and West. So the Warriors are already running 12 deep as it is. But if you sort of look at the long term of it in a way, Vaughn is slated to be an unrestricted free agent after this season because Milwaukee declined the option. But you also have to look at it and think, okay, McCaw could potentially leave in free agency. Some team is going to want to offer him maybe 4 years, $28 million, something in that ballpark. They're going to essentially force Golden State's hand. They're going to force them to decide, do we want to retain McCaw or do you want to let him go and go with another option, someone like him? And then you have to also think that Caspi could potentially be offered a deal as well. You also have to think this might be West's last go-around. And then you also have to consider, what do you do with Zaza? So potentially having someone like Vaughn there waiting in the wings, allowing him to be integrated into the system, allowing him to get a full off-season with the system, could potentially do them good going into next season. And just for anyone that's listening, this isn't official rumor. This is just something that I've put a little bit of thought into. But then if you look at the contracts as well, you would get rid of about $2 million for $1 million in Vaughn, so you shave about $1 million off. So it's a trade that I'm personally intrigued in terms of just both in the short term and the long term. And what would you say your opinion on this potential trade?
I could see it. I actually like the idea of having another shooter, because especially with Andre's poor shooting this season, and just having like that unit, like say it's KD running with Bell and then Livingston and then maybe Vaughn there or maybe Nick Young, but I feel like maybe they wouldn't be playing at the same time. But yeah, it would just give us more options. Yeah, like I said, because that unit can have struggle scoring unless even with Clay running through it, or if it's running with KD and Clay on the floor with the other bench guys, just having him there, like if Curry's not on the floor, or even with Curry on the floor, it would just open up more options.
And it never hurts to have too much depth.
Yeah.
And so I think it's a really weird situation for the Warriors because JaVale's obviously one of the most liked Warriors. He gave his little chain to Jim Barnett, and he's been rocking it ever since.
Yeah.
Barnett's got that little bit of swagger to him.
Yeah, he's a super likable guy, one of the most likable guys in the team. Especially, I like him a lot.
And then he's got his alter ego Pierre, the one that's
he also makes bangers. How about that?
It's strange because his music's actually like pretty solid. It's like for all the flack that he sort of gets as this as having a low basketball IQ, he's actually really fucking intelligent, which is
he's intelligent, he's talented.
Yeah, and then he also has that. I think it's like the Parking Lot Chronicles.
Yeah, it's a funny series. You get the more personal look at what the Warriors team is up to after game nights at Oracle Arena.
But when you're someone like Bob Myers, you're not really looking for that likability doesn't really translate to on the court production.
Yeah.
And it is a tricky situation. I would assume that he's a really good presence in the locker room, that he's someone that the team likes being around, that's someone that can provide locker room energy, some positive vibes.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, I'm pretty sure he wants to play as well.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, it's a business decision too.
Yeah. I mean, those warm-ups are nice. They got a nice little design to them. I like them, but I don't think he wants to be wearing them that much.
Yeah, need to show the jersey off once in a while.
Yeah, so, you want to get into anything else?
That's pretty much it. It's been, 2017's been as great of a year as we could ask for as Warrior fans. Going into 2018, I don't know. What do you think? Another championship potentially?
I think that barring a string of injuries, I think another championship's on the road.
Yep.
The Warriors are on pace for another championship, especially considering how well Curry's played when he returned.
That's what's on the plate. 2018, you can expect it.
All right, so this has been Justice De Los Santos
and Eryn Tolentino
signing off. This has been another episode of Splash Considerations.
Once again, the wettest podcast on the internet regarding the Golden State Warriors. This has been our end of the year podcast. We'll be coming at you more often in 2018, so look out for us to keep up with your favorite team.
Deuces.
Night.